Good morning, everybody. This is a live emergency update on potential tropical cyclone 8. Possibly could be upgraded to tropical storm Helena, but it right now is just slamming southeastern North Carolina with a feeder band on steroids. Basically, have a logjam of supercell storms, and right now I am breaking down this dangerous potential tropical cyclone 8, possibly tropical storm Helena. It does have just a little bit of a tilt to it, of course, but let me show you really quickly on radar. And right now you can see that things are just going berserk right now on radar. This is a supercell structure that is coming onshore. Major lightning right now. This is just hammering Carolina Beach area down toward Bald Head Island as well. And I've been watching this area for water spouts because the wind shear is definitely very strong, and you can already start to see some convergence here. That's obviously a mesocyclone coming right in. And you can see a lot of inflow as well. This is definitely basically should be considered a tropical storm just because of the impacts on the ground. You're getting 50+ mile-per-hour winds. That's been measured just offshore. You got about 1,005 millibar low, but it does have some tilt to it. So the low is down here. That is at least the surface representation of this potential tropical cyclone. And then meanwhile, you just have this feeder band on steroids that is prompting flash flood warnings as well. Just a little bit in them. That's what those green boxes are showing you there. And we could even get 8 to 12 inches of rainfall, possibly, when it's all said and done. Definitely please share and like this live stream as well if you know anybody that lives in this area. We are giving the live updates right now as they are coming in. And looking at velocity, I'm a little bit worried down near Bald Head Island for the potential for a water spout. And you can definitely see you're getting a little bit of the wave velocities, very strong inflow, of course, as you'd expect with a tropical cyclone. And right now they are just getting piped right now. Southeastern North Carolina, Bald Head Island. I'm really worried about this portion of the coastline off to the north because of its shape, because you have a lot of onshore flow out here. You're getting coastal flooding right there. You got these flash flood warnings from Sunset Beach up through Wilmington. Some of the forecast models are showing that there could be several inches of rain out there as well, possibly even approaching a foot. And so we are breaking this down here on satellite. Let me see if I got my Epic pen. There it is. And here are the tropical storm warnings right now. And those are basically stretching from central South Carolina, basically the Charleston area, all the way up through Wilmington, through Cape Fear, all the way up to the southern Outer Banks. That's where the tropical storm warning is in effect. And look at next week, too. We're also concerned about potential severe weather toward the end of September. That'd be like September 28th, 29th, 30th. Great Plains could be active. Some of the forecast models have been showing a mega trough ejection. I'm still not sure if it's going to happen. The models have definitely kind of wavered back and forth from that mega trough ejection just a little bit out there. But let's take a look now. We'll go back to a potential tropical cyclone 8, tropical storm Helena. That could become tropical storm Helena. Here is the latest. You're looking at the GFS model, folks. Let me make sure this pen is working here. Hopefully my audio is operational. We originally were watching this trough ejection because of the potential for severe weather tomorrow and Wednesday, but it looks like because of this low down here, this upper level low, and because of what happened with Francine, you don't have very much moisture return. You have northerlies dominating the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to create a lot of dry air out here as well. And I do think that that's probably going to limit that severe weather potential just a little bit. But let's take a look at potential tropical cyclone 8 and see its potential track. We're going to drill down a little bit closer. And I know that some of the other forecast models were showing that this might even go a little bit further north. But here is your upper level circulation as of this morning. This is the mid and upper tropospheric representation of that low. And the reason that it hasn't been labeled as a tropical storm just yet is because of the tilt that this thing has. Basically from the low levels all the way up to the mid and upper troposphere, it's got a tilt. You're looking at the mid and upper level circulation right now. That's it right now on radar. And it's not a cold core system because you look aloft and you can see that there's really not a representation there for cold. It's definitely a warm core system, but it does have a little bit of a tilt. But you can see the very warm temperatures there in the mid and upper troposphere. That's how you can tell it's a warm core system. If it were a cold core system, thriving off of the temperature gradients there, baroclinicity, then it would obviously be a subtropical low. But right now we are looking to see if it's a warm core system and if it has any tilt as well. So let's look at the surface reflection of the low. We drill down to the surface, and there it is, late morning. That's where it shows the surface representation of potential tropical cyclone 8 right down here just off Myrtle Beach. Meanwhile, though, you just have this pipe of convection that's coming onshore over southeastern North Carolina. The mid-level circulation is actually relatively tight to this tropical cyclone, so that's why I do think that it is a Tropical Storm Helene. It already is packing winds as well, up above 50 miles an hour. There's your 850 circulation. Let's go down to the surface really quick. That's your surface representation of the tropical cyclone. And you go up to 850, and it looks like at least the surface up through 850, that cyclone is pretty vertically stacked. There you can see the tropical cyclone. These strong 1 kilometer winds out of the east-southeast are what are creating some favorable wind shear for tornadoes as well. Doesn't look like a tornado watch is going to be issued, but you've got those supercell storms that are stacked in a log jam. Let's go up to 700 millibars, see where that cyclone is located. And there it is at 700 millibars as well. This is late morning Monday, so this is right about now, 700 millibars. And you go up to 500. There's your 500 millibar vort. So to me, it looks like the tilt is quite minimal with this circulation. HWRF model did a pretty good job at this, kind of showing that convective band coming in. A lot of these supercells meandering offshore as well. This was so far this morning, and it's just fascinating how the HWRF model can resolve some of those supercell storms, but it doesn't seem to do a very good job at it either, because a lot of times it'll resolve those supercell storms. And then remember Hurricane Francine, it came in and just the convection wasn't quite as vigorous as a lot of the forecast models were showing. But here you can see the HWRF model taking that potential tropical cyclone 8 very close to the Myrtle Beach area, at least the center of it. But the worst of the conditions are definitely just hammering this portion of North Carolina. Basically from Carolina Beach up toward Wilmington, you're getting winds 50 miles an hour, even greater than that. When some of those mesocyclones pass by too, it could definitely bring those winds up to even hurricane force coming in. But it does look like the HWRF model kind of keeps that surface reflection just offshore over that warm water through the duration of the day today. And eventually that convection starts to come onshore. The convection is going to continue through the midday hour, it looks like, southeastern North Carolina into northeastern South Carolina. And then it does try to lift up a little bit further north once it comes ashore. This is at 0Z, and it brings that feeder band up into the southern Outer Banks. Up near New Bern, could get some tropical storm conditions up there. And let's take a look at satellite, again, a little bit more in detail. We're going to go back to satellite imagery. Let's take a look at the visible satellite imagery. Going back over to Tropical Tidbits, just an awesome place to visualize these tropical cyclones and track them as well. So look at that vigorous convection there. This is on infrared, and it actually looks like we have some vigorous convection that just is coming in right now. And we looked at that on radar down here near the Carolina Beach area. Just getting pounded right now in Carolina Beach. And you can also see the concavity of the shoreline as well. Anywhere to the north of Cape Fear where you get this concave shoreline, that's where you're going to get that onshore flow. You're going to get a lot of coastal flooding coupled with flash flooding as well. And it does look like this is trying to interact with a bit of dry air, which normally would increase the tornado threat. But I think that there's some stable air over the landmass there over southeastern North Carolina, right at the nose of the dry air, though. That's where your vigorous convection is starting to set up. We've probably had an outbreak of waterspouts offshore over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream with this event. But let's look at visible satellite and see if we can assess any tilt to the cyclone. I think we'll be able to see that low-level center a bit more evident, and you can see that there is just a little bit of tilt. Even though it's not really showing up on the models, you can see that your surface low is located right here. And it's not even that close, but you can see on the radar that it does appear to be close. Maybe even a little bit further to the northwest is where your surface reflection of this potential tropical cyclone is located. And then it looks like your mid-level circulation is just onshore over southeastern North Carolina, associated with the more vigorous convection. But boy, it looks like the surface, 850 up through 700, is just spinning away there just to the south of Cape Fear, just offshore of Myrtle Beach as well. And it's really semantics, but we'll see if they upgrade it to a tropical storm. I wouldn't be surprised if they do when it comes in, just because based on the models, it looks like that cyclone is pretty vertically oriented. Once it starts to get that tilt from the low levels to aloft, the more strongly tilted it is, that's when it's starting to respond to temperature gradients or baroclinicity, and then you're talking more about a subtropical low, one of those hybrids, or even an extratropical low. You can definitely see the dry air kind of coming in on the south side of the circulation here. This nose of dry air and some stronger westerlies, and so it is definitely feeling some south to north oriented wind shear as well, but it's not tilting it that much. But definitely the low-level circulation is exposed, not a lot of convection there, but it does look like right near Carolina Beach, you can see her kind of unzipping as this feeder band is just pumping into that area. That's where the worst of the conditions are located, and you might even get winds potentially gusting up to hurricane force right there, right on the tip, right near Cape Fear, if you can get a mesocyclone to pass over you. That's really the key, is to get that mesocyclone to pass directly overhead. Just spilled coffee on my crotch. Oh, man, that's hot. Wow. So it's still potential tropical cyclone 8, 1005 millibar central pressure, moving north-northwest at 5 miles an hour. Strong winds and heavy rain continue to spread over the area. Maximum sustained winds at 50 miles an hour happening. And so at least according to this latest update, it has not been upgraded to Tropical Storm Helene. And even if it is, it's still a way below normal season. We have Tropical Depression Gordon out there that is really encountering that hostile environment, a lot of wind shear, a lot of dryness in the mid-levels. And we predicted that this season was going to be a little bit of a bust. We did it on all of our lives, and the reason why is because there's a lot more to seasonal tropical cyclones, especially basin-wide to these forecasts, and just sea surface temperatures and El Nino, La Nina, basically El Nino Southern Oscillation out there. I think the North Pacific actually plays a role in teleconnections. When you have a warm blob in the North Pacific, it'll displace the jet stream a little bit further south across North America. That's why the last 2 years have been active for tornadoes, and I expect next year to be active as well. Seems like it's setting up for a bit of a 2011-like season with that warm blob in the North Pacific, a La Nina that's going to mature during the winter, and then next spring I expect that El Nino to build in from the east, and I think that we could have a lot of similarities to 2011 in terms of tornado season with a pretty active central and southeastern U.S. Dixie Alley could be active, a progressive upper level system, but still that jet stream is going to be displaced to the south. You'll have a warm Gulf of Mexico as well. But we've got these tropical storm warnings here in blue up the coast, basically from Charleston all the way up. Let me bring that Epic pen back. And up to the southern Outer Banks. And I think later on today, that convective band is going to lift up toward the New Bern area, up toward the southern Outer Banks. And I think that that's going to bring those tropical storm conditions inland toward your location as well. But looking at visible satellite, just look at that thing spin out there. I'm almost more interested in these hybrid storms than even like a full-blown hurricane at this point, just because of its interaction with the temperature gradients of the Earth. To me is just fascinating as they transition from more of a tropical system into a slightly extratropical system. So we're going back to radar, and this was that popper that we saw on infrared satellite. We can see that cold cloud top, and it shows that those cold cloud tops, when they do fire, are basically hot towers, because relative to the mid-latitudes, they're releasing a lot of latent heat. But this is what's causing it. Basically, this supercell structure that you can see here, this is right over southeastern North Carolina. You got Cape Fear right here. Off to the north, you got Carolina Beach. You're finally going to start to see some improving conditions there in Carolina Beach. But looks like I'm watching this area right here for tornado potential. We're going to have to keep on watching that zone that was right underneath that relatively cold top, a hot tower. I know it's a little bit confusing, but the millennials are all about just finding those buzzwords for things, changing things. Fujita scale, enhanced Fujita scale. But look at this. This is the potential for water spouts coming onshore, landfalling water spouts. And I wouldn't be surprised if there already is one here just to the south of Carolina Beach, south of Cure Beach, Cure Beach. I'm sorry for that. I know it's Topsail Beach, but I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. But this is the circulation. That's your mesocyclone. You can even see this little RFD bulge inflow couplet here happening just offshore. But this is what probably the worst conditions with potential tropical cyclone 8 right now coming on shore. And it looks like we actually have a hook echo just to the north of Bald Head Island, Southport. If you're in Southport, I would probably get in your safe place. You are getting absolutely blasted right now by 50 to 60 mile per hour northeasterly winds. A ton of lightning just rocking your location right now. This is pulling in a lot of inflow from the east-northeast into this area. Probably a waterspout in progress right now. You can actually see the barrier island there on satellite imagery. And that is what I'm watching right at the tip. You've got some pretty good gate-to-gate here as well. And you can see that it's right behind the RFD gust front, suggesting that mesocyclonic occlusion is happening right there. And it looks like you could also have another little vortex getting shed to the north of that. But if I was in this area, if I was covering this storm, I would be just rocketing northward, just already working this area here, because that's going to be the worst of the conditions, the onshore flow, the very strong winds, possibly gusting up to hurricane force, maybe tornado force. If you can get a landfalling waterspout with this hook-like appendage, you can see where it's pulling in the inflow right into that little inflow notch. Looks like another inflow notch further north. That's why we have these dual circulations. You have one off to the north. You have another one right here. Rear flank downdraft bulge getting kicked out into the Atlantic Ocean happening here. So we are breaking this down live right now. Let me make sure that everything is going properly. Looks like we are still live. Thank you, everybody. Please dominate that like button if you know what's good for you. Looks like the algorithm is just destroying this live update. I wonder if my microphone is shot. Test. Looks like it's still working. I worked this microphone because then the algorithms would promote my live briefings a little bit more. They can seem to recognize when you have a microphone pumping in. But look at this low-level stratiform rain just wrapping into that circulation right here. That shows you the direction of the inflow, shows you where it's coming in. Wouldn't be surprised if we do get a tornado warning issued for this, but look at this other supercell structure that's getting going. That's approaching Bald Head Island. That could be coming in. I think this is a members-only stream too. But you can see not a ton of rotation with these when they're offshore, but you can definitely see that there is a mesocyclone, of course, with that. And then further north, just to the north of Bald Head Island, we are watching this zone right here for a potential tornado warning. It doesn't seem very tight, which tells me that this is probably an elevated supercell just a little bit. But these are the worst conditions right now with potential tropical cyclone 8. Right with this, you have a log jam of supercell storms right here within that feeder band just pumping up toward that zone right over southeastern North Carolina. Little renegade out here that's wispy. But you can see that log jam of supercell storms just ripping right into Cape Fear. There's a reason why it's called Cape Fear. You get a lot of very dangerous conditions out there, southeastern North Carolina. But it looks like the center of circulation is back over in this area, headed up toward North Myrtle Beach, Sunset Beach as well. And I think that the latest HRRR model was picking up on a lot of this heavier rain coming in, even showing double-digit rain up there near Wilmington, just to the southwest of Wilmington. This area, Carolina Beach to Bolivia, that's where the heaviest rainfall is happening. Could even be double-digit rainfall out there. But we're watching this logjam of supercell storms that can come in. And as they move on shore and encounter the friction of the earth and a little bit of a stable layer, it fans out into this plume of very heavy rain, a plume of warm rain processes, very small raindrops, driving rain, very heavy rainfall happening there. And look at how that inflow zone of the supercell doesn't want to move away from that diabatic heating max with the relatively warm ocean waters of the Gulf Stream. That thing is trying to move just a little bit inland there. So now I'm going to head on over to the HRRR model. No, this is everybody. Sometimes I do these really in-depth live updates for members only just because everybody doesn't want to hear the in-depth meteorology I go live and I start to go in depth, they're like, F you, I'm going to a different live stream. But, you know, that's why I do a lot of these more for members, the people that are a little bit more appreciative of the in-depth analysis instead of just saying, it's going to be windy, it's going to be wet, this is why. You know, I just like to go a little bit more in-depth into the meteorology. I mean, I devoted my entire life toward the science of meteorology and the sciences, being a naturalist and studying 17 years at the University of Oklahoma. But now we're going to pull up the HRRR model here. And this shows you the evolution of potential tropical cyclone 8 after it moves on shore. I want to use this to show you some of the rainfall as well. But there's that low. And the HRRR is a little high just because it's probably a little off with its coupling with the warm ocean surface. But look at all this onshore flow coming right into this concave portion of the shoreline. You've got easterlies just pumping into that concave zone there. That's why you're going to get a lot of the coastal flooding as well. But check out the wind shear. Here on the HRRR model. And I'm going to go a little bit further up the coast just to center this on the screen. But I want to show you the wind shear in the front right quadrant of a tropical cyclone like this. First, we'll look at the energy helicity index. This is a EHI. Basically shows you where the strongest wind shear co-locates with surface-based instability. So some of those bright colors there just show you the overlap of any instability with strong low-level wind shear. And you can see it's right along the coast. Carolina Beach, right up the coast. Mostly offshore, though. Over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream. That's where you get a lot of that instability. Let me make sure my Epic pen is working here. There we go. There's the Epic pen. So you can see this plume here of energy helicity index, non-zero. That shows you the location of surface-based instability with strong low-level wind shear. And notice how it only goes on shore, just a narrow ribbon, right from Carolina Beach and a little bit off to the north. You have a lot of stable air just inland, and the EHI composite index is picking up on that. So that's why you're not going to have that tornado potential migrating inland too much. But what's most interesting about this HRRR model is how much rainfall it has. And a lot of it has already fallen. This is the 14Z HRRR, but it brings that pocket of rainfall just to the west of the Wilmington area, down a little bit closer to the North Carolina, South Carolina border, and it's picking up on that supercell structure that we see that just came on shore near Carolina Beach and then is going to settle down near the North Carolina, South Carolina border, pumping a lot of rain in there, double-digit rainfall amounts. And it looks like the heaviest of the rain is going to be right about there. There's Wilmington, just to the west. And this is from now forward, so it's bringing that heavier rain a little bit off to the southwest. We do have flash flood warnings, but no flash flood emergencies just yet. But this is the HRRR model, QPF. And we'll take a look at the 3-kilometer NAM as well. Convective allowing model, so a lot of times it could be a little bit off with the coupling with the ocean surface as it's tuned more for land mass, but also has that 6, 7, 8 inches of rain down there, southeastern North Carolina into northeastern South Carolina, but a little bit less, 6, 7 inches. I would say that's probably about right. Let's take a look at the NAM model. NAM model has 6 or 7 inches. Myrtle Beach has that area just a little bit displaced to the southwest. GFS, also similar to the NAM, but it does pump a stripe of some decent rain up into the Appalachians. That's much needed rainfall there. Fall color season might not be as good this year. There's a lot of stress to the trees because of the drought conditions that have dominated Dixie Alley and portions of the southeast. There's the European model showing 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of rain up there. Northeastern South Carolina, southeastern North Carolina. We'll go back to radar as well. Let's see the evolution of that supercell storm that we have been monitoring here. I still wouldn't be surprised if there is a tornado on this right now because of this right here. That's the forward flank gust front. Anytime it's really sharp like that and cyclonically curved, that means you probably have a streamwise vorticity current and a very strong area of low pressure, like a low-level mesocyclone or tornado cyclone here, right at the tip of the hook. Everything wants to flow in toward that tip of the hook there. At least Carolina Beach is getting a little bit of a break. Carolina Beach, sea breeze area, you're getting just a little bit of a break in the action as that supercell storm has slid just a little bit inland. And we'll call it a supercell storm, but it's basically like the inner core of Tropical Storm Helene or potential Tropical Cyclone 8. On the ground, it feels like a tropical storm, I promise you that. And you also have this plume that's approaching Myrtle Beach. Eventually, this is going to come on short of Myrtle Beach, probably in the next couple hours. Conditions will worsen a little bit there. But this is the worst of it. As this supercell storm spreads toward the radar site here, that's where the bullseye is for the heaviest rain, like 5, 6, or 7, 8 inches of rain there over southeastern North Carolina. Tornado warning issued. We have a tornado warning that has been issued, folks. We definitely called it about 20 minutes ago. But there it is. There's your tightening up circulation, your gate-to-gate wind shear, a little bit displaced from that inflow, suggesting that there's probably an occlusion process happening here just after it's crossed over the barrier islands. Starting to feel the friction of the earth just a little bit. So this is our first tornado warning that just got issued, happening right now here. We went live just in time. I'm not seeing much in the way of debris right now. Zero debris. This is all due to overhang of the radar, so that's not debris happening. Circulation is like right about here, I believe. So it is a strong circulation, pretty good gate-to-gate wind shear. We have a cyclonically curved forward flank, and actually it looks a little bit messier now, so I wouldn't be surprised if the tornado potential has just passed. But if it does happen, it's going to be right along this shear zone on the northern edge of a bulging RFD. So this is the rear flank downdraft. You have strong westerlies, Southport, probably getting some offshore flow, maybe more northwesterly direction right now. But you have a potential developing tornado just to your north, up in this area. That's your inflow notch. That's the notch of that supercell storm. Breaking it down here live. Be sure to share this stream if you know anybody down in this area. Thank you, Madeline. Grumpy Grandpa. Yeah, it is a tornado warning. There's a lot of strong wind shear, like 300 to 400, 0 to 1 kilometer shear, so keep that in mind as well. But we're watching this shear zone. We have a rear flank downdraft that's bulging out. We basically have a supercell storm here. It has already shown up on satellite too, as this is one of those hot towers, as we call them, when those storms are developing. When you see those popping up on a developing tropical cyclone, this shows you that they're like little supercell storms embedded within. So right now we are watching this area to the north of Southport. There's Southport. There's Carolina Beach. This is the area of interest. Boiling Spring Lakes, this is heading toward your location. So Boiling Spring Lakes, you're going to want to be in a safe place. We're starting to see that hook curve a little bit. That means it's pulling in some more inflow, and it might be trying to undergo tornado genesis right at the tip of the hook here with potential Tropical Cyclone 8. It does have a tight mesocyclone, low-level mesocyclone. This is where the tornado would happen, right in that area. This is just to the southwest of Carolina Beach. You have that big slug of inflow just to the north of it. And so no tornado watches have been issued, but we do have a tornado warning. That's what that red box is right there. So if you know anybody in this area, definitely let them know. Boiling Spring Lakes, time to get in your safe place, as it does look like we have a supercell storm heading to the northwest toward your location. It's moving pretty rapidly as well. We've been looking at some of the wind shear and definitely is supportive of tornado potential out here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully my mic is sufficiently loud. Should be right in the pocket. Again, we have that tornado warning happening. Potential Tropical Cyclone 8 we are monitoring here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. There's the National Weather Service official track. I think it's a little bit north of this based on visible satellite, and I do think it's probably headed a little bit closer to the North Carolina-South Carolina border. But there in orange, you can see the tropical storm conditions coming in, and it does look like a new band kind of pushes up toward the southern North Carolina Outer Banks just a little bit. But right now we are tracking this tornado warning. Look at that hook wrap all the way around. That's your tornado vortex right there. Tracking it live here at Team Dominator from Team Dominator headquarters. Look at that little pop there of inflow. Possible weak tornado in progress right now, but it looks like that circulation is coming down just a little bit compared to what it was before. And I'm not seeing any debris. We'd have to look for one of those big dark blue poppers right about there, and then we'd be worried about debris, folks. So we're not too worried about that. But look at that rain wrapping all the way around the circulation. If you're out in the field looking from the north to the south, you'd probably see that rain just wrap around a wall cloud or a lowering. You'd likely see some converging rain curtains out there. You'd probably be almost looking at a tornado. But this is headed up toward Boiling Spring Lakes. You want to be in your safe place if you're in Boiling Spring Lakes. Got to be kidding me with that right there. That is definitely a mesocyclone, possible tornado moving off to the northwest. Got to be kidding me. Oh, whoops. Didn't mean to show that. That's next week's severe weather. When a ski jump trough might eject into the central U.S. Great Plains could be active. And we definitely did call this hurricane season being a little bit slow, and I'll tell you why. My PhD dissertation was on this, using sea surface temperature anomalies in the Pacific Ocean to predict things on the seasonal scale. And let me show you what this looks like real quick. This blob in the North Pacific. This is, I think, a very important key. Stay with me. So out in the Pacific Ocean, you have a lot of sea surface temperature patterns that will vary out there. On the seasonal level, they vary on interannual, like 1 to 3 years. Decadal variability out here, which is on the order of 10 years. But you can see, obviously, we have a blob here in the North Pacific. This is your North Pacific oscillation, and it does have a seasonal evolution. I've been tracking this thing. A lot of times it'll migrate out into the Central Pacific, and then as you approach fall into winter, it comes back closer to Japan, probably related to a reduction in upwelling out there, some type of internal process. But anytime you have this warm water up here, this is called the North Pacific Oscillation, or the warm blob. It displaces a jet stream southward across North America, and that's why you get very active tornado seasons across the United States, across the Great Plains, central and eastern U.S. That's why we've had active tornado seasons the last 2 years. What has varied is El Nino Southern Oscillation. We started off with an El Nino, even an emerging El Nino in 2023, and that focused the severe weather over the high plains, the higher elevation of the high plains, banked up a little closer to the Rockies. From New Mexico to Colorado, all the way up to Alberta, it was active. And then this year, you had a weakening El Nino, a little bit of an emerging La Nina, basically neutral, but you still had that warm North Pacific oscillation. That led to a slightly more progressive upper-level storm system, but it forced the tornadoes into the central Great Plains. Areas like traditional Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, Kansas were very active. Iowa was very active. This upcoming year, we've got a more mature La Nina down in the tropical Pacific. We still have our warm blob. And it's very similar to 2011 in the winter into the spring, where you had this warm blob in the North Pacific. You had a maturing La Nina in the winter, and then an emerging El Nino as you got a little closer to spring. That's why I think we're going to have another active tornado season because of the warm blob here in the North Pacific. But you're going to have a more progressive upper-level system. That's going to be the central and eastern U.S. that are going to be active. And that's why I think 2025 is going to be all about Dixie Alley, possibly even this fall about Dixie Alley. We're already starting to see faster moving upper level storm systems because of the La Nina conditions that are in the tropical Pacific Ocean. And I feel like I'm really plugged into the interannual evolution of the climate system right now. Let's go back and see it looks like our tornado potential has dissipated a little bit, but it's trying to wrap in rain. There's your circulation just to the southeast of Boiling Spring Lakes coming in. It's wrapped in rain there, of course. Flash flood warnings happening, but your circulation has gotten a lot weaker because it's starting to move in over that stable air just inland a little bit, and you can see that your mesocyclones are still trying to hang on a little closer to the diabatic heating max out there over the warm Gulf Stream. But this is a big slug of rainfall, hourly precipitation, very heavy here. No flash flood emergencies, they're all flash flood warnings, but getting very heavy rain. Boiling Springs Lakes down towards Southport. Look at all that precipitation happening there. Just getting blasted, folks. Very heavy rain. And it looks like that supercell storm that was coming into Bald Head Island right about there is looking a little bit weaker just to the west of Bald Head Island. And the center of this potential tropical cyclone 8 looks like it's going to be right down here. I think it's going to come very close to the border of North Carolina, South Carolina. You have largely offshore flow here near Myrtle Beach. Light stratiform rain. Next week, middle of next week, we could be monitoring a hurricane. We got a new tornado warning off to the north with this band. We got to watch out for this in particular. Wind shear is a little bit stronger up here, but look at that thing coming ashore. It doesn't look like it has tornado potential anymore, but it sure looks like it had a tight one, and it did. Sneed's Ferry. That was probably a tornado. It's still warned, still has tight rotation here. Look at how fast that's just zipping along too. And we also have another mesocyclone just to the south of Emerald Isle. That was actually a tornado. Look at that. South of Emerald Isle. Watch this. That is a water spout. It's due south of Emerald Isle, right there. Look at how tight that is. That's the type of couplet that you get when you're talking about a tornadic waterspout or a tornado or any tornado this close to the radar. Fairly long-lived, fast-moving ripper of a waterspout. You'd only see that if you're out there on oil rigs, though, but definitely feeling the warm waters of the Gulf Stream. That's our old circulation north of Sneed's Ferry. That circulation's weakened just a little bit. Still has a mesocyclone, still definitely encourages that tornado warning. But it is weakening with time. And I'm not seeing any debris with that. But that made landfall just to the north of Sneed's Ferry. And now we got to watch out for this one. Already a known waterspout producer. Southwest of Emerald Isle. Beautiful Outer Banks out here, Emerald Isle, Indian Beach. You probably have even people that are out there skiing. But look at the inflow notch here. Big, pulling in those northeasterlies right into that notch. You got a hook coming around the backside here. That could be a waterspout south of Swansboro. This tornado warning is going to be allowed to expire north of Holly Ridge. And we still have our tornado warning down near Southport, Boiling Springs Lakes. Using the faraway radar, you can actually see where that tornado cyclone is located. And it looks like it's passing just to the southwest of Boiling Spring Lakes there, folks. So the more dry air that kind of wraps into the south side of the circulation, the more concerned about tornado potential I become. So the more dry air you have that wraps in there, the more these outer bands are going to be able to tap into a little bit of surface-based instability. And I wouldn't be surprised if the tornado potential actually ramps up just a little bit. Look at how warm the Gulf of Mexico through the Atlantic Basin is, but It's it's more complicated than that. It doesn't mean just warm water, it means bigger hurricane season. A lot of times when you get warm water out there, it means that there's a anomalously low cloud cover and you have high pressure out there, and it's a hostile environment for clouds even, especially convection. Wouldn't be surprised if we do get a tornado warning for this, since Swansboro is right in the path of this storm here. And if this does produce a water spout, it'll be pretty quick. It's probably going to pass to the south of Swansboro though. But if it did suddenly intensify and turn right, which isn't going to happen, Swansboro might need to get in your safe place. This tornado warning, northwest of Sneed's Ferry, is going to be allowed to expire. (1,004, 1,005 millibars). So the reason why it has such a high central pressure but still has these big impacts is because it does have a little bit of tilt to it. Here are some of the models struggling to even find a center. Look at some of these models here. So you can see that they are struggling a bit to even find a center. And in fact, I think that it's going to be coming a little bit closer to the North Carolina, South Carolina border there. Definitely is some potential that it brings some much needed rainfall into the southern apps too. Thanks everybody, these live updates. Probably the easiest thing that I do in my job are these live updates. I can just pop down, fire up a thing of coffee, go live, and bang. Do it in real time. But yeah, it does take it up eventually toward the Appalachians over the next 72 hours. That could bring some much needed rainfall there. But look at the tracks. Just right toward the South Carolina, North Carolina border. I think that the National Hurricane Center is a little bit too far south in where the center is and where the tracks are going to go. A couple of these global models still are bringing it up along the coastline. I think that's why some storm chasers were sent up toward Virginia Beach and Nags Head, even though this thing was just going to come on shore. GFS did a very good job at that. TropicalTidbits.com is a good Dr. Levi Cohen. Been doing it for a long time. Great guy. Intensity forecast. This thing's already reached its peak. 50 knot winds, maybe gust to hurricane force if you can get inside of a tornado. Ooh. What an anemic looking hook here. But definitely has water spout potential all along this shear zone to the west of Emerald Isle. There's Emerald Isle, Indian Beach, and the inflow notch. Anywhere along that shear zone, you can get tornadic water spouts. Just a big shaft there. Anywhere along the northern edge of that shaft, you can get tornado potential because of that shear zone. Let's take a look at velocity, and you can definitely see the shear zone there. Looks like there could have been a water spout that just came on shore right here. Little pop in some velocities. There's probably just a little cumulus congestus tower right there. That could even be a water spout right here. A little bit of spray. Out near Bogue, just south of Bogue, Swansboro. Definitely that shear zone is interesting there. But potential tropical cyclone 8 coming on shore. Some tornado warnings, some flash flood warnings as well. Looks like the rainfall max is probably going to happen right down here. Carolina Beach, back toward South Carolina, North Carolina border. Thank you, new Team Dominator members. Thanks for tuning in and for making these weather reports possible. We should have our new episode of Twisters IRL coming out soon as well. And we're headed up to Chicago next weekend. We're not going to be able to go to the big Oklahoma-Tennessee game, but we're going to be speaking to folks on Never Stop Chasing. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into this live weather report here from Team Dominator headquarters, breaking down potential Tropical Cyclone 8. Thank you, new Team Dominator members, for making these possible. Never stop chasing.